We'll bring him in.
What's
Jeff
up, boys?
Marek, the newest member of the Nation Network. Jeff, we're very excited to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure is mine. You know what I liked about Lekkerimäki yesterday? And it wasn't so much his game. His game was like by any standard of measurement, he played really well. I just liked that Vancouver didn't put him in like, well, we're going to give him 6 minutes on the fourth line, and that didn't work. Send him back to Abbotsford. Like I don't like the put someone who's going to be a top six player in a bottom six role and then make your mind up about him. I love how they handled him right out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. Power play one time, Jeff. We were talking, and so I know you don't watch our show much yet. I'm sure you will. I take victory laps on as much as I can, and I haven't taken my victory lap yet. So with Jeff as a witness,
what's your victory lap?
Power play one, Lekkerimäki. I was clamoring for it yesterday.
When you shoot like that, how do you not, right?
I know, especially with Besser out. But great point about Lekkerimäki.
Look good. And I'll tell you what, I remember that draft in Montreal. They were stunned that he was available where he was. Like, they ran to the stage when Lekkerimäki was still available.
Big picture, I just wanted to get your view because you're obviously plugged in and you have a great league-wide knowledge. Based off the conversations that you've had with whether it's execs, coaches, or just knowing other teams around the league, how do you think they view the Canucks? Because, Quads and I, we have a very Vancouver-centric focus on this team. Mm-hmm. Do you think around the league, Vancouver is viewed as a bona fide Stanley Cup contender, or do other teams still see holes in this team?
I don't know that anyone is saying Stanley Cup about the Vancouver Canucks. I think that they look at this team and say, this is a really good team. This is a team that, as we all know, needs some help on the blue line. This is a team that needs a healthy Thatcher Demko and needs a lot of things to break their way if they're going to do some damage in the postseason. I don't know that anyone's whispering Stanley Cup. I think that's, the domain of, the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers, etc. Although, Winnipeg Jets look real nice right now, folks. But I think that the Vancouver Canucks are in that category of, if they're all healthy and get a lot of breaks and puck luck along the way, they can have a deep run in the playoffs. Like, they're really good. Like, but they're a really good team. Yep. Like, this is a team that has, impact players at every single position. And now the nice thing to see is Elias Pettersson starting to come out of this lethargy and this funk. And if that continues and JT Miller can get over whatever JT Miller is going through right now and can be that JT Miller that we've all known for a number of years, and Brock Besser, cross our fingers, can come back sooner than later. Like, this is a team that has legitimate players that will qualify for trophies at every single position. We said it last year. We'll say it again this year.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Like, you need these guys to be clicking at the same time. Like, that's what it's been the story of so far this year.
It's hard, man. Like, it's hard.
Just different times.
It's so tough, and it's so frustrating. I mean, every team goes through it right now. Like, it's rare that you're able to go through a season without racking up the numbers on the man games lost, and you have to have it click all at the same time. Like, you're right. Like, and that's why I don't know that we put enough premium on the President's Trophy winner, because finishing on top at the end of 82 games, I think, is a real accomplishment. I know the game changes in the postseason. We all chase the Stanley Cup, and every shift is for keeps, and every hit is for keeps, and everything has that meaning to it and that gravity to it. It's a different game, but it's a real accomplishment to finish first at the end of 82 games. I don't know that. I think we shrug off the President's Trophy too much, I think is what we're getting at here. As far as health, you can look at it and say that might have more to do with luck than anything else. And that might be true too. But if the Vancouver Canucks can find that and get lucky come postseason, we all know they need to do something on the blue line. Like, that's like the worst kept secret in the NHL. This is a team that I don't know that we're going to whisper Stanley Cup, but we'll whisper do some damage and maybe upset a team or two.
Okay, so you mentioned it. When we're talking about holes on this team,
yeah,
there's a big one on the back end there on defense. Do you get the sense that this is going to be like in past years where they make a move before anyone else?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
It's Jim Rutherford. Like, it's Jim Rutherford. Like, Jim Rutherford was the first manager, and this goes back to 2006 with the Carolina Hurricanes, who made all of his moves early, and it paid off. And he's always stuck to that model, right? 2006, the Carolina Hurricanes, who no one really took seriously in that season, had a really good October, and everyone said, well, that's cute. And then had a really good November and said, well, that's interesting. They're sort of have some staying power here. And Rutherford started to make moves. And next thing we're talking about, can Corey Stillman win the Conn Smythe Trophy, or is it going to be Eric Stahl? Should it be Cam Ward? Like, that's the formula that Jim Rutherford has always believed in, has always stuck with. I don't see any reason why that would change now. Rutherford is very much of the mind that when you arrive at a price to get the player that you want, you make the deal as soon as possible. That's why I fully expect that to stay the same with the Vancouver Canucks. That's the model that's always worked for Rutherford, multiple Stanley Cup champion. I don't know why that would change this season.
How do you think the working relationship and dynamic sort of works between such an experienced president of hockey operations in Jim Rutherford and in your general manager in Patrick Allvin, where how does that work in terms of the power, the influence, the decision making?
It's a great question, and I know the knee-jerk sort of frivolous answer is Patrick Allvin is just there to take orders from Jim Rutherford. But when you look around the NHL, I've thought a lot about this, Harm. Like, I'm glad you brought this up. The role of the general manager, certainly in a salary cap era, and specifically right now, isn't like what it was in the 70s or 80s or 90s, where the general manager had full autonomy. And that general manager was going to dictate everything about that organization, everything about that team. All decisions weighed and rested on the general manager's desk. That's not true anymore. Like, how many times have both you guys heard about a manager? One of his great strengths is he manages well upwards, right? And that is one of the skills that everybody needs to have as a manager right now, to be able to work with your president, to be able to work with your owners. Some teams have owners that are more active and involved than other teams do, and you need to be able to navigate through that. So I don't know that I'm prepared to look at this Allvin-Rutherford relationship and say, oh, wow, look, Patrick's talking. You didn't even see Jim's lips moving. I'm not prepared to say that at all, because everybody has that relationship with everybody above them. Now, what makes this different is Jim Rutherford's been a Stanley Cup champion, successful general manager for a number of years and is in the Hockey Hall of Fame for a reason. So I know that it may feel like it's more pronounced, but make no mistake about it, no one in the NHL right now in the GM position acts like Sam Pollock or Bill Torrey or any of the legendary general managers previous. It's just not how it's done anymore in the NHL.
Jeff, what have you made of Quinn Hughes' season so far? Obviously, takes home the Norris last year. Somehow looks like he's playing even better this season.
He's awesome.
What have you made of him so far?
He's awesome, and like any true great player, he isolates the area that he needs to work on, and he gets better at it. All of a sudden, he can fire the puck.
Yeah.
Like, make no mistake about it. Like, all of a sudden, like, okay, it's so interesting, right? Like, you look at all the things that go into what makes Quinn Hughes an elite level defenseman, and if he just stayed the way that he is, he'd still rack up a couple more Norris trophies. But instead, he's like, you know what? I need to be a shooting threat. So outside of all the great vision and understanding of the game, and say nothing of the skating and the edge work and the positioning and the creativity and all of that, now all of a sudden Quinn Hughes is a shooting threat as well. Like, to me, that's what separates, I don't know, great from elite, or however you want to do it. He's not satisfied being the best and winning a Norris Trophy. Now, listen, the caveat here is I think Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the NHL, full stop. Miro Heiskanen can make some noise there as too. But, Quinn Hughes is not done getting better yet. Like, you look at all hockey players, much like you look at teams, and you look at them in two states. They exist in the state of potentiality or actuality. And the scary thing is, Hughes has already won a Norris Trophy, and you can make the argument he still exists in a state of potentiality. He hasn't ceilinged out yet. He hasn't topped out yet. Like, we still, I don't think, have seen the best of Quinn Hughes. That's frightening for 31 other teams in the NHL.
Last week, the NCAA changed up some of their rules around eligibility, and now CHL players are going to be able to transition over to the NCAA if they want.
Yeah.
there's so many layers to this, so many factors, so many different perspectives and ways that this will affect players, different leagues. Ultimately, who do you think the winners and losers of this eligibility change are in your mind?
Ooh, I think, well, first of all, congratulations, NCAA. For the longest time, there was always the question and the battle about, Canadian major junior hockey versus Division One and who reigns supreme and superiority. For NCAA is on top of the development pyramid. Full stop, the end. Like when you look at like the battle is over, and the way the development pyramid goes right now, boom, we see Division One on top. Now there are plenty of players. Like I was talking about this with the Coffee Boys the other day, the Morning Cup of Hockey guys, and it's not as if Connor Bedard is going to leave Regina after 2 years and he's going to go play, with Nodak or with BU or whatever. He was going right to the NHL. But by and large, like we're going to probably see a situation starting next season where Canadian major junior hockey, funnels players towards the end of what would be their junior hockey career into NCAA. What does that mean for purposes of the draft? For how long, teams have the rights to players? We still don't know. There's a lot of things that need to be sorted out right now. But right now, and it's funny too, because your knee jerk would be like, oh, this is terrible for the CHL. And I would make the argument, and I would even make the argument, and I haven't asked Dan McKenzie about this, but I will one day. I would even make the argument that this is something that the CHL would welcome. Now, Dan McKenzie, who's the head of the Canadian Hockey League, his background is sports marketing and has a strong sense of sports marketing. And I would imagine that the CHL is only too happy to put their brand right next to NCAA and make it as close as possible to get that sort of brand association or that brand rub. But as far as winners and losers, I mean, I always wonder, Harm, like, okay, what am I missing? Like, what am I, like, there's always the law of unintended consequences, like unforeseen consequences. Like, what am I missing here that's not obvious? Like, there'll always be some players that are going to get, as we say about, anything else, caught up in the gears of history. And there will be some players here in this transition period that unfortunately get caught up in the gears of history. We don't know how that's going to work, but we know that it is going to work. Some of the initial losers right now, and I take no joy in saying this because I want to see strong leagues everywhere. I mean, you see what's happening in the USHL right now with a lot of players leaving, and it seems as if every single day there's another that you either hear a rumor about or you see leaving the USHL. Ditto for the BCHL. And I know we're all wondering about Chilliwack and how many players are going to leave. Is it going to be as many as 5? Who's going? What's happening with Caleb Malhotra? Is he going to be the next one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? It seems as if initially now those two leagues specifically are the two that are, as I just mentioned a second ago, kind of getting caught up in the gears of history.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I shouldn't say we. I'm a big BCHL guy. I live right by BCHL rink, so I try to support the BCHL as best I can. But again, like it's almost like this is relatively good for players. It's just
more choice. It's good for players. It's good for players. It's more choice for players.
Exactly.
Ultimately, this is good for players. Yes.
And just quickly, like I know we gotta let you go soon, but like quickly, just like you mentioned the NCAA at the top of the development pyramid.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been that way. Like, what's helped the NCAA get to that level?
Elite level coaching, elite level programs, a very safe and secure development model, not just for hockey players, but for human beings as well. I always look at. I'm a big Red Berenson fan. I'm a big Michigan fan. I'm a big Wolverines guy. And I look at that foundation that Red Berenson laid in front of everybody. And I think Red Berenson should be in the Hall of Fame because of it. That there's a development model. And I'm not saying the CHL doesn't do this, but there seems to be a real premium put on not just developing the player, but also developing the human being. And when you're sitting across from mom and dad as a NCAA recruiter, and you're sort of laying out like all the different things that that this college can do for your son, it's kind of overwhelming. Does it provide a mini NHL environment? No, it doesn't. The CHL does that, but what NCAA hockey does provide is a safe environment, a healthy environment, a highly competitive environment, and you're seeing it by all the players that are choosing to go that route. I think that there's a premium placed on making sure that boys, young men are not just physically ready, but mentally ready as well for the NHL. And quite frankly, the school sports experience is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, make no mistake about it. Like, playing major junior hockey is cool. Like, it's a lot of fun. Again, like, it's the mini NHL, and it's really cool. Like, hey, you play in the Medicine Hat Tigers. Oh, this guy plays in the Calgary Hitmen. Oh, this guy's a Giant. This guy plays in the Swifty. Like, it's cool, right? Like, it's a big thing. Ask anyone who's played at any of these schools. There's something so unique that bonds you to a lot of people when you play for your school. And like, you go to the game and it's packed and there's the band and everyone's wearing the school colors and it's all your buddies. And like, honestly, it is ask anyone who's gone through it. It is such a cool experience. And that's why all these players go back. And the ones that are successful, the big alumni, they're always donating money and donating time and always going back because it becomes, some of the best times you can experience, not just as hockey players, but as young men. I fully applaud everything that the NCAA has done with Division I hockey, because you're right. Once upon a time it was like, it was the Calgary Flames and, under Badger Bob Johnson, who couldn't, draft quick enough to beat the Oilers. So they grabbed as many elite level college players as they could to try to compete, the guys that were 22, 23 years old. Now, those days are gone. And now they're producing consistent elite level players. And a lot of Canadians have made that choice to go there.
Jeff, thanks so much for this. We're looking forward to chatting with you in the coming weeks. Excited to have you on the team. This was a phenomenal first hit. Thanks for doing this.
I am thrilled to be here. You boys buzz back anytime.